Hot stove conversations about baseball, history, football, and current events that may leave you saying there's more to consider. Now, here's your host, Jack Moore.
Welcome to More to Consider with Jack and Charles. All right, Charles. Everyone knows this now. We are natives of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and we are residents as we speak. Virginia, I want to say, because we look at the Electoral College, I think Virginia is now out of 50 states. I think we're 16 in population now. I should look that up before I said it, but I think we're 16-ish, right? Somewhere. You got your Californias, New York, you've Texas, Florida, but Electoral College, because there's plenty of states that are out there with 3 and 4, electoral votes because they're so lightly populated. But what I'm saying is here, Virginia's a player a little bit in national affairs, and certainly the Pentagon. And by the way, I looked at a source the other day about something we've discussed. It said the greatest concentration of military personnel is Hampton Roads. And it said 68 out of 1,000 people in Hampton Roads is in the military, serves in the military. Wow. The only one close, number two, and it's not even close, number 2 is San Diego, 44. And then it was a location in Texas they said was 23.
Okay.
So we have discussed when it comes to Navy, clearly the largest naval base in the world, I think actually is Norfolk.
Yes.
So you have Norfolk, you have Oceana, you have Langley, you have Eustis, Story, all kinds of forts, all kinds of Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air, everybody's there. Everybody's in the area and just in Hampton Roads. And then you get up, we understand the importance of other bases throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. So it's heavily military. And I believe it's still the old saw that something like the 5 richest per capita incomes in the United States are the 5 counties surrounding DC. Some on the Maryland side, some on the Virginia side, but
right.
And we all know why, because government's big business. We can get into that. So
yes, not a lot of factories in DC, but a lot of lobbyists.
A lot of lobbyists, right? Yeah, we make the stuff other places, but all right. So here's where we're going with the discussion today. I set up all that about Virginia because I think the Youngkin election with Terry McAuliffe was huge on the national stage as well, because we're coming out of the first year. We're going into the completion of the first year of Biden. It's 1 year out from the 2020 election. And he makes, according to most, I think, the gaffe of saying, which I didn't totally disagree with, something along the line of, let the educators do the education part, parents shut up.
Yes.
But it was taken as parents have no say. And that led to his downfall. So now, as most people know, whether they live in the Commonwealth of Virginia or not, the big news was that just in front of the Spanberger and Earle-Sears having their debate, the Jay Jones information comes out. And everyone knows this by now because we're doing this, in the 10 days to 2 weeks from this. So the Jones controversy is that he, in 2022, was in a text exchange with someone, I believe also in politics, that got a little bit ugly in that he was right. Okay. All right, well, here's what I want to set up. So we're going to get into, I never like to get into anything without being absolutely sure I go to the quote, but we all know that the former Speaker of the House and the House of Delegates in Virginia, which is, our house, like House of Representatives would be to the federal government, we have the bicameral legislature as well. We have 100 members of the House divided through the Commonwealth and 40 members of the U.S. Senate, of the Virginia Senate. So I think it was the former Speaker of the House. He says something along the line of Hitler, Pol Pot, and this guy. And if you had 2 bullets, who would you take out? Both would be shot at this particular member of the House of Delegates. And in my memory of what's been reported, I think the guy that's in the text exchange is like, hey, dude, you might want to back off. Like,
right.
I don't know if you really want to be saying this. And it's like, talking about visiting it started with a Democrat had died, and he was fairly conservative, I believe, and that the House Speaker had said something along the line of "great guy" kind of thing, which pissed him off. And he said something about visiting the graves of Republicans and wanting to piss on said graves. Then he makes the comment about the gunshots, and then something about the children dying in the mother's arms. So we know, we can get into the specifics of it, but that's basically what it is. And at some point, I think person he's corresponding with just cuts off, stops the text messaging. And I believe Jones may have continued to leave some others. He also has a speeding ticket of 116 that he got community service for. This is the other controversy with him. So he does a speeding ticket, or he gets reckless driving at 116 miles an hour and gets like 100 hours of community service, or 1,000 hours. It's quite a bit of community service. I'd have to look exactly what the number was. But he did. This is what's in dispute. He may have used his political action committee and time spent working in that to satisfy the community service hours.
That's crazy.
Right. So that's the other controversy. So what I want to set up today, and I know I'm running in, I'm keep going because all this stuff is going through my mind, how I want to set this up. You and I have personally had the discussion of what is disqualifying to a candidate. So Mayorkas, the now sitting attorney general, clearly in his debate with Jones was like, along the line of anybody in his position would say, if you're talking about top cop, you're talking about attorney general, really in charge of prosecutions, not at the local level, but you're basically, like I said, the top cop for the Commonwealth. If you have a history of doing 116 miles an hour and maybe fudging it when you're doing the required community service, there may be some issues with that. And you make statements about political opponents when you are kind of fantasizing about their death in a violent way, does that disqualify? So I'm going to let you start there. Do you believe that is disqualifying? And I'm saying person must withdraw, because there's been calls for his withdrawal from the race, but where do you think that line should naturally fall? Or what do you think about that?
Well, first of all, the Democrats are not going to tell or say anything about the guy dropping out, because that's the last thing they want. They don't want him to drop out either,
right?
Because the last thing they want is an open race. And
it's kind of late in the game. It's kind of late in the game to do anything with that party.
Well, it is, and sorry, you picked a candidate, that did what he did and said what he said. That's not the opposition's fault. It really isn't. So I'm sorry, Democrats, that's your fault. Maybe you should have vetted your guy a little better.
All right, let me back up and clarify what I'm asking.
Okay.
I don't disagree with you that the Democrats are clearly, as they say, between a rock and a hard place. And this is what we're going to go into next, is we're going to get into the debate between the gubernatorial candidates and the two ladies there, and how Spanberger was kind of put in the position of, like, do you disavow Jay Jones? And where you, and you and I have talked about this off the air, or off of this podcast. I think she did exactly what she had to do. Now, she looked bad doing it, maybe, but I think she had to say, hey, it's up to the voters. And that's the question I'm asking. What I'm asking is, can there ever be a time? What is the mechanism to clean this up is what I'm asking. Is it let him run his race, and maybe he drops in popularity to the point he loses the race? Or what would be, there has to, when you imagine someone says something so egregious, they're out of the race, there has to be a mechanism in place to execute that, to eliminate that person from the race. So I think in many ways people are pissing up a rope when they use the term he should be forced out of the race. Go ahead, talk to me.
Yeah, but you said it earlier. It's kind of late in the race now to do that. They can't really, pick their plan B and have plan B go in and run. I don't even think they're able to replace him on the ballot right now.
You're
not
probably
exactly.
right. You're probably right. You're probably absolutely right. Yeah, there's probably some kind of restrictions you had to get, to get on. You go through the nomination process. I don't know that maybe it drops to number 2. I guess the Democrats went through some type of. There's probably someone else that's qualified that sought the position as the nominee of the Democrat Party, maybe, and you could fall back to that person.
But can you replace
Well,
them
if
on the
that person
ballot?
had done everything they needed to do to be in the race for the nomination, maybe they had already punched all the tickets and crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's to be eligible to be voted for, is what I'm saying. Maybe. Because I know what you're saying. Like you're going to have to hit certain qualifications to be considered a potential candidate prior to an election. And I'm sure what you're saying is all of those deadlines have crossed or have passed,
Right.
long past. But I'm saying maybe there was somebody that was also vying for the nomination that did all the things that were required. Well, I bet every party has this. They have to have some kind of coverage mechanism. What if someone were to pass away? They were in a car accident, whatever. I mean, and became incapacitated. So what if Jay Jones, and I'm not saying this about any particular person, believe me, I'm not saying about Jay Jones, but what if anybody was in this position on October 31st, days before the election, that person passed away from what, or became incapacitated, clearly couldn't serve. Let's say passed away because they're passed.
Okay.
Would they throw somebody on the ballot with 6 days left or 5 days left? Or would they just say, too bad, Miera's wins, unless there's write-ins or something? Talk to me.
This is what Wikipedia says.
Okay.
In Virginia, a candidate can be replaced on the ballot up until the election date.
Okay.
But the specific process and timing can vary based on state election laws and the circumstances of the replacement.
Right.
Generally, if a candidate withdraws or is unable to continue the campaign, the party may nominate a replacement, but this often involves legal considerations and may require court involvement. So they can do it,
Okay.
but
Right.
I don't think that the Democrats are going to want to actually go through the process of doing it.
No, they won't. So I'm still, in my head, I'm still thinking I'm asking the question. What I'm asking is, because many people have said, and I know people use this language all of the time, and they're not being precise in the language. Well, he's disqualified himself. I'm like, no, I don't think he has.
No, he hasn't.
And I think he could still win. So
Yeah.
The thing is, now you come to questions, though, about his effectiveness once you become, and you and I had a conversation off the air, so I'll kind of bring it up. When I was a prosecutor, I had a guy right before a trial was fired. I won't say the jurisdiction. I won't say anything. I'll just say it happened at some point in the past. So he had been found to be lying about hours he was spending working a sideline job that involved security, and he was fired. So I see him before a preliminary hearing, and I'm like, hey, defense attorney's offered this, or he has accepted a plea agreement type of thing. You okay with it? He goes, I'm fine, but I got to run to a meeting in a minute. So he runs to the meeting and he comes back, and I'm like, are you good with this agreement? And he goes, I don't give a fuck what you do. I mean, I was like, whoa, that kind of struck me kind of funny. So then I find out he got fired. So he got fired for doing something that's being less than truthful. So guess what? The guy who was up on the charge just basically got to walk because we don't have a witness. Here's my point in that, bringing that up. Was there still potentially a person to subpoena that could have been brought in and asked questions about the traffic stop that led to the charges on this guy?
Yes.
Yeah. What's the first thing the defense attorney? Hey, didn't you just get fired? Yeah, under oath. Didn't you just get fired? Yeah. Didn't you get fired for lying or doing something of a moral turpitude, right? Lying, stealing, or cheating? Yes. Your Honor, I moved to strike. The only witness the Commonwealth has is someone that has been found to be a liar and fired for that. He no longer works with the police department. Yeah, that's a disqualification. It didn't mean as a human being he couldn't come in and truthfully testify to what that guy had done. So I say that to say, is there a potential, and I don't know what the mechanism would be to clean this up, this spill on aisle 6, but couldn't there be an argument? You got a guy that's shown a disregard for public safety by driving 116 miles an hour. Man, you might find some other politicians clearly have done that. But what if you have the top cop, Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Virginia, who has made these type of statements?
Yeah, that's
could
where
right.
you draw the line, honestly.
Well, maybe you could, but I'm not even talking about. I think it's just stupid, and I think
Yeah.
that's about all it is. And I think we're living in an age where, in 1971, this would not have happened. He could have written notes that got discovered, but he wouldn't have been texting. He wouldn't have been texting and putting into something that's discoverable, even by law enforcement, thoughts that he had about the demise of a political opponent. So, but it does show an aspect of his character that I think does put him in light. But here's the bottom line. Don't you think it really comes down to, it's still the voters that decide this?
Yeah. And honestly, that's what Spanberger said, that it's up to the voters. And I have to agree with her. Unfortunately, we have some voters that are going to vote D or R solely because they have a D or R behind their name. And that's it. That's their only reasoning for it.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you there.
And
Let me ask you this too, because I heard somebody talking about this. What do you think the percentages are? I heard somebody the other day saying 30, 30, 40. 30% are Republican no matter what, 30% are Democrat, and 40 are kind of on the fence. I don't think it's that. What do you think it is?
I don't think it's that high when it comes to the people on the fence. I'm going to say the people on the
I
fence
agree.
maybe 20.
That's exactly what I believe. I think
Yeah.
it's more like 40, 40, 20.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I think so. But I don't know. We don't know. We haven't done a study on that. But yeah, I think the 40% that could go either way is an over exaggeration of people that are on the fence.
No, I did a scientific study last week. Trust me, that's what the numbers are. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think most people will tell you I would only vote Republican or I'd only vote Democrat is well past 75%. And
Yeah.
then there's something out there. All right.
Yeah.
So what I was saying about bringing up the police officer fired, I don't know what the challenges may be, but I can envision, I don't know, as a lawyer, I could say there's probably no strength to this, but I don't know if the attorney general's office doesn't go after somebody, particularly as a defendant. There won't be some lawyer, believe me, that's going to, in some type of responsive motion, hit the court with, hey, the attorney general himself wants to see people dead, so it does kind of put you in a compromising position. All right, clearly, I think we would say this: if the AG's office, all right, let's do something that's easier. In Virginia, your DA is a Commonwealth's attorney. We call it the Commonwealth's attorney. They also do in Pennsylvania. No, I think Kentucky and Massachusetts. Pennsylvania doesn't. They call it a DA, even though they're a Commonwealth. But so for those people listening, yeah, they do call it a DA, a district attorney, even though. All right, so Virginia, we call it the Commonwealth's attorney. It's an elected position. So what if a Commonwealth's attorney had done 116 miles an hour and got it reduced out of reckless driving and got 1,000 hours community service, whatever? Don't you think every defense attorney could bring that office? Well, you generally don't prosecute in Virginia a reckless driving charge unless it involves DUI. And not every jurisdiction. That's all it says in the Virginia. Well, I guess it would be in the Constitution. It's certainly in the Code of Virginia. It breaks down. The only duty the Commonwealth's attorney has is to try felonies in the circuit court and then handle preliminary hearings in the general district court. There is no duty of the Commonwealth's attorney to prosecute misdemeanors in general district court. Many, for political reasons, will prosecute DUIs because it's like one of those public safety things.
Right.
They will. They don't have to. You don't have to prosecute those in general district court. You also have to prosecute misdemeanor appeals that make it to circuit. So really, the Commonwealth's attorney's duty is to be in circuit court. But I could see an argument that every time something came up involving speed, somebody could raise their hand and say, well, the Commonwealth's attorney himself drives 116 miles an hour. Like, why are you coming down on me? It creates a problem. Now, I would have said, what about a felony? Could you ever see a Commonwealth's attorney ever elected? Is that a bar to service? I don't know that it is, to be honest with you.
I know this is going out in the weeds. I know it is.
Yeah, go out in the weeds.
Okay.
Yeah, go.
I don't want to go out too far, but I always had an issue with laws or prosecutions of potential crimes.
Oh yeah.
And it's kind of like it's like a case of a thought crime. And
absolutely.
I know people are not going to like this one, but I don't really find it right to put people in prison who are going on their way to go do something illegal.
All
But
right. Okay. You're getting into a little, I was with you for a moment because I actually heard Bill Maher making this point the other day, how the left has created environments that they can't control. And he said, once you started talking hate speech, you started talking enhanced punishment because you beat the guy up because he's another race, or, you thought he was a Trump supporter or MAGA, or, you thought he was a commie.
right,
Whatever those, what you're doing is you're punishing the person for having an unpopular thought. And I agree with that.
right,
But it's a little bit different if you're talking about somebody is, as we say in law, inchoate crime. You haven't completed the crime, but your intention is to take a substantial step towards the crime. That's different than what's going on in your thoughts, the kind of the motivation, because motivation is generally, like 99 times out of 100, never an element of the crime. The
okay,
element of the crime itself, it's not an element what the motive is. Motive is nice in front of a jury, because if you can get the jury to go like, well, he hated the bastard, he said bad things about him down at the local bar, or he was sleeping with his wife. When they hear motivation, they like it because it kind of closes the book and makes them think, well, I know why Timmy shot Billy was because of a certain motivation. But you don't have to prove the motivation. You have to prove that he pointed this object that fires, rounds down a cylinder at the person with the intent to maim, disfigure, disable, kill, and you did so. It doesn't matter why you did it. So,
right.
so complete that thought. Tell me what you mean by driving to the commission of.
We've all heard of not Ted Danson. What is the guy? Hanson. The guy who does
I
the
know where
To
you're
Catch a
going.
Criminal,
Yes.
the Catch a
Right. To catch
Predator
a
thing.
predator. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
I always had an issue with that because technically they haven't done anything wrong yet.
All right. You're
They
into
haven't.
something that, yeah.
Well,
Well,
the reason I
and you're
bring this
right.
up
Yeah. You go ahead. Go ahead.
is because of this Jay Jones guy. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, regardless of what he said, he didn't exactly do anything.
Exactly right. I totally agree with
You
that.
know, and because he didn't do anything, really is. I mean, we could just talk about his character in saying that he would or what he would like to see, and so on and so
It's a
forth.
right read. Yeah.
And
That's a right read.
but other than that, he didn't do anything. It
I
really
totally
is
agree.
on the voters to say, is this the type of person that I want to enforce the laws and rules and statutes within the state of Virginia?
Right.
That's the real question. Did he disqualify himself? Not legally,
Right.
but morally, yes, he did disqualify himself. And I think that's how a lot of people are going to look at it.
Yeah,
The-
I think it's just that though, because I remember seeing Ann Coulter on a show and she was exactly right technically. She goes, the statement that Trump made, grab him in the pussy, would have never held up, she said, in a court of law. Because what he said prior to that was, hey, when you're rich like me and they're beautiful,
Yep.
they're just coming after me. They're so into me, I can just grab him in the pussy. I
Yep.
can just grab him. He did not say, I'm going to grab pussy against their will or against their
Yep.
wishes. I mean, he just kind of said, they kind of come to me. They're coming to me the way they do because I have so much money or whatever. Okay, is it locker room talk? Yeah, whatever. We're not going to relitigate that necessarily, but she made the point on a talk show and everybody's like, well, he should have gone to prison for that. Like,
That's crazy.
What? Right.
He didn't do anything.
But it was because it was like an overall ongoing assault against women in their bodies. I mean, that's
Right.
kind of what, but who were saying that? People that hated Trump for whatever reason, whatever level of Trump derangement they had, it was just parroting what they heard on some other network, about how we have to get rid of Trump. But Coulter was right. And what you just said is the best I've heard anybody put it. You're exactly right. He did not, in that text message, make any type of, he made no statement of a plan. He made no statement of anything in furtherance of taking the life of the person. The fact that you fantasize about the death of another, but it is a slippery slope, which I think Bill Maher was absolutely addressing that makes sense. When you start pissing and moaning about somebody said something I didn't like, it's hate speech, and then applying that or adding that to enhance punishment for, oh, you just kill that person because they're X or Y or G or that, it gets to be, well, one thing too for the prosecutor, is it puts an added burden on the prosecutor to prove that this person had these held beliefs.
Right.
And that's not always necessarily, but I don't think it's, if you pick up a crowbar and hit somebody over the head and you fracture their skull, you hit somebody over the head and fractured their skull. Okay, so there's a maiming statute, there's statutes, maybe you take their life, there's murder statutes. It doesn't really matter to old common law view of a crime what your motivation or intentions were. It didn't matter. So I think it does get a little bit scary, because what Mara was saying, and I totally agree with, when you break it all down into the elements, what in fact are you enhancing the punishment for? The dislike of people because of their race or their ethnicity or their sexual orientation.
Right. Which is a thought crime.
Which is a thought crime. Right. So I that's the best I've heard anybody put it about Jones. And that's why, and when I kept hearing people, he's disqualified himself. Like, technically he has not disqualified himself. No, if he wants to stick it out. Now, if in the end he loses by 1 percentage point, and Mayores is actually, according to the last thing I saw, actually slipped ahead now. So he is ahead.
Good.
So
morally good.
Yeah. So let's go to, let me just read this real quick. The text message, 2002, he sent the text messages expressing desire for violence, political reactions. The message led to calls from some Democrats for Jones to withdraw. Jones publicly apologized, stating he was ashamed and embarrassed by his comments. And he did. He said all he can say. Like it or not, he said, what the hell else can you do? Right. Now, I don't know if he ever made a direct apology to any particular member of the family or any particular members. Maybe he did, but impact on the polling. Following the controversy, Virginia Commonwealth University poll showed trailing Jason Mayores by 45-42. And I know he had been up at some point. Mayores has criticized Jones for his comments and has called for him to drop out of the race. Ongoing developments. The controversy instilled by Jones is also under scrutiny for a reckless driving incident, which is reportedly under criminal investigation. The political landscape in Virginia is shifting, with the attorney general race becoming increasingly competitive as the election approaches. Another important key. Another thing I got to say important, because I saw some commentators saying that Jones, was Spanberger's running mate. And in Virginia, that is not a thing.
No.
You can all be of the same party. Go with that. Explain that to people.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a running mate in Virginia, for the fact that, unlike in the presidential election, where you have the president and the vice president running on the same ticket.
Right.
The way we do it here in Virginia is like it used to be done in the United States before they actually combined the two offices in the election. The governor runs on one ticket. The lieutenant governor runs on a different ticket, and so on and so forth. And in Virginia, you can have a governor and a lieutenant governor from opposing parties.
That's right.
Much like it was in the 1700s and the early 1800s in the United States. So what we're doing here pretty much is continuing how things were done when the country was formed.
Well, for those that are listening that maybe want a little history lesson, it's the 12th Amendment to which Charles is referring. So in the elections of 1792 and 1796, where Washington won easily and John Adams got the second amount of votes, John Adams served as the vice president. So now you come to the election of 1800 and it becomes kind of screwball, because Jefferson and Adams are really greatly at odds with each other, and Jefferson wins the election I'm sorry. In 1800, Jefferson wins, but in 1796, Adams wins. He serves the one term. And what happened was, originally, whoever came in two was the vice president. And then what came from this fraction or this fractioning of the relationship, fractures of the relationship between Adams and Jefferson, you started to realize you could have a vice president that's clearly at odds with the one that won, because it's the number two guy. And if the political parties were beginning to grow as a thing. So they came up with the idea of, okay, you'll vote for president and vice president together. And then you had to put the two, and they couldn't be from the same state, and they put in some other things. That all came about from the 12th Amendment. You're right. So I just found it interesting and it's interesting to see how much national light has been shed on this controversy and how Spanberger looked when she, I don't know, again, she didn't really have a perfect thing to say, but she sort of got hit with the why aren't you dropping him from the ticket, was sort of what was out there in the news, like, well, she should drop him. I'm like, no, it's not her place to drop him. They're running separately, and we often have a Republican governor and a Democrat lieutenant governor, and then whatever is attorney general. Yes.
And plus, he's running for attorney general, not lieutenant governor.
That's true. Not even, Well, and you really kind of wonder what the hell, very much like vice president, what the hell use is the lieutenant governor? I mean, it's kind of like probably presides over the Senate, I believe. Yes. All right, here's something that came out. What's today? October 22? Are we on the 22? Okay, this is today. Spanberger describes AG candidate Jay Jones' violent text about GOP colleague as poor choice. The gubernatorial candidate still sells, and this is now, she's under some controversy for this. She's still selling campaign merchandise endorsing Jones. But all that means is their pictures are together. Their pictures are together on a shirt. What are you going to do?
Yeah,
you're going to blow up all these shirts and go out there and try to go to the cost. I thought that was a little bit much.
It's way too late for them to change anything right now. They just
agree.
Have to go with what they have, and the Democrats are just going to have to play, not catch up, but they're just going to have to
run out the clock.
Yeah, they're going to have to run out the clock. They don't have a choice. The guy, he is what he is, and that's it. Sorry. Do I hope the guy loses? Yeah, actually I do. And I hope he loses because he doesn't seem to be a good person. And he reminds me of all the people who were celebrating what happened with Charlie Kirk and other people on the right when things happen to them, things out of their own control or whatever happens to them. They're celebrating it because they look at people on the right as evil and as their actual enemy. So anything that happens to them amongst themselves in the echo chamber that they live in, anything that happens to those people, they got what they deserved. That's how they feel. And he is no different than any of the rest of them. So him saying what he was saying, I don't think he had an issue with it in the company that he was saying it in. Why would he? They say it all the time.
Apparently he did, though, to some degree, make whoever he was sending these text messages to somewhat uncomfortable.
Well,
because
he was making them uncomfortable for the fact that there's a record of it. If they were just talking amongst themselves,
I think he even said that. I think that I can't put things out there, but I think there was a text from the guy like, "Hey, dude, this could be." Somebody could subpoena this record of these text messages. I think so.
It wasn't what he was saying amongst his friends. They pretty much, I'm not going to say they do, but I have there's a strong possibility that they do feel that way. Also, they just don't want any written record of it. They're just as much a piece of garbage as he is. But that's how they look at the people on the right.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to discuss is when we look at the 4 years between the 2020 debate between Biden and Trump. And Trump clearly tried to make some hay out of the Hunter Biden laptop. And this, of course, Biden is armed with 51 members of intelligence that say it's a Russian hoax or whatever. But, we could remember the great criticism of Trump after that was that he should have just shut up and let Biden keep talking. But Biden in 2020 was clearly different than Biden in 2024, as he was clearly different as Obama was going out of the office. I mean, you see the films of Biden in 2016. They don't look so bad as far as, his ability to, cognitively know what the hell was going on. But 2020 was a guy. 2024 was an entirely different guy. And of course, given the nature of the election last year, I clearly think that Trump had realized, I just got to let I just got to let him talk.
Yeah.
And he's going to definitely say things which led him to say, of course, I think it was one of the greatest lines in debate history. I have no idea what he just said, and of course, I don't think he does either. That was okay.
Yeah.
But that being said, we had the same thing with Sears. Yeah. All right. Your first gut feeling about watching the debate and how much of the time that Winsome Sears was, what about this, Abigail? What about, off to the side, and the moderator, ma'am, please let the other candidate speak or whatever. What did you think of that when you first saw it?
I thought that she was being a little overbearing and a tad bit obnoxious, but there's a but here. Would there have been another time that she could have made those points or asked those questions directly to her in that type of in that environment? No. So she almost didn't have a choice because what? The media wasn't going to ask her those questions. No, they just weren't.
I haven't seen all the polling, but the early things that I heard was it didn't play against her.
No, I don't think it did. And
yeah, apparently it did not, because the race has shifted somewhat. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm actually going to look and see what the
numbers are now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested where the numbers are, but so I hear what you're saying, and that's why I thought the uncomfortableness of it as a human being watching another person in a very uncomfortable situation. I thought Spanberger should have just very professionally, that's not really the term I'm looking for, but I thought it would have served her best to not stare forward and act like she didn't hear the person continuing to ask her the same question over and over. I thought she should have said, look, the rules of this debate are we answer the questions from the moderators. We don't answer questions from each other. I'm ready for the next question. But she didn't even say that. Like if that were the rule and that's what they were operating under, she should have made it clear. The reason I'm standing here stone-faced and not acknowledging the fact that you keep tweeting at me is that this isn't the rules of the debate. And I think she would have won a lot from that. Right?
Yes, she would have.
To stand there and say nothing didn't play so well, right?
It's okay. This is weird.
What you got?
Well, I'm looking at these polls, and I don't know what poll this is. It's claiming that Spanberger has a 10-point lead.
10 point. Okay.
Well, hold on. This is the problem with looking for this poll, for the fact that most of these results are really old, and it would seem like something is important as this. You would have the latest polls,
right?
And I'm having a hard time finding the latest polls. Even
all right, I'm seeing, when I pulled it up, I'm seeing recent polls show Spanberger leading Earle-Sears by a significant margin among likely voters.
Yeah, which again, that's not. I don't find that all right,
here it is.
Accurate.
Recent polls. Here's what I'm seeing: Abigail Spanberger, anywhere between 52 and 55%. Winsome Earle-Sears, 42%.
Yeah, again, but I could have sworn that the polls had tightened.
Well, I thought that too. I thought going into my memory of it was what I heard in the days following the debate, and that's been 2 weeks now at least. My memory of what I heard first was that Spanberger was up by 10 to 12 or maybe more, and that after this debate it had dropped to 2. And then the question was, could Winsome or Earle-Sears, could she cut it? Cut the 2%. And now it's looking like it's drastically spread again.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. Here's the latest polls. This is October 22. It's today. I found another one. Okay. This is everybody. State Navigate. Spanberger, 13 plus.
Wow.
Qantas Insight, 5. Kaplan Strategist, 10. Clarity Campaign, 10. Coefficient, +5. Here's a 2, here's a 7, here's a 3, here's a 9, here's a 4, here's a 10, here's a 5, here's a 12, here's a 10, here's a 3. There are none that I'm seeing that have Earle-Sears, even within 3. 3 is about none ahead. So if that's true, yeah.
Okay. I mean, it is what it is, man. I would like to talk about something on a different podcast, though.
Go. Oh, different podcast. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right. So closing this up, we've been about 40 minutes. All right. So closing this up, we're in Virginia. We're talking Virginia politics at some level, but we're talking about some things that have come out. I do think I have to throw. All right. You say whatever you want. I'm going to search something real quick.
I'm having a hard time with the polls, but then it makes me think about the state itself. And the other state that I can think about that's like, actually several. New York is like this. California is like this. Virginia obviously is like this. Whereas we have it's almost like we live in a state that's split up. And
oh yeah,
everything north of Fredericksburg pretty much is voting a certain way. South of Fredericksburg, you have Richmond, some cities in Hampton Roads and Roanoke and so on and so forth. Excuse me, that do vote a certain way, but everything around it is complete opposite. California is kind of the same way.
Yeah.
And New York most certainly is the same way.
Yeah.
And this ends up really, it hurts how can I put this without being, sounding really crazy? Because of that, those of us who don't live south of Fredericksburg, those of us that do live south of Fredericksburg, we're almost told what to do by a very small, area that's around DC. And
I agree with that.
It's like true. It's gotten worse and worse and worse, because I don't really know of anyone who thinks like Spanberger thinks, except for those who are north of Fredericksburg.
Well, I wouldn't. Let me say this about that. I was watching probably 2010 when one of the just completed, a census that had just been completed was being discussed. You'll have a good grasp, and I'm just spitballing what I remember the numbers were. They were talking about Boston to Norfolk, Virginia, or Virginia Beach. What crazy number of people live along 95 to 64, turn down 64 to the beach. Now, in the Commonwealth of Virginia, what percent of Virginians do you think lived in what was called Northern Virginia, the Richmond area, and Hampton Roads? What percent of the state population do you think were made up by them?
Northern Virginia.
Those areas. Northern Virginia, Richmond, and its surrounding area, the greater Richmond metropolitan area, and Hampton Roads. What percent of the people in the state do you think lived in those?
85.
75. It was 75. Okay. So it was like DC was 23 point whatever, Richmond was 21, and the beach was 23, 24, whatever. So it added up to about 75% of the people lived on the interstate pretty much. Mm-hmm. And you know that from travel.
Yes.
You come down 95, you know what a mess it is from DC to Fredericksburg. It's a 50-mile backup if people don't know. It's a 50-mile backup from Fredericksburg to DC. Then you get down to Richmond, turn left down 64 to the beach, and that's where all the people live. Now, if you travel west in Virginia, and you do at times, you're like, there's nobody out here.
Nobody.
So I think Virginia is 105 counties. I think it's 105. Or maybe it's 105 counting the cities that used to be counted, whatever. I think I remember in either 2016, 2020, Trump won like 91 of the counties or something like that in Virginia. I totally believe that, because the reason Virginia still goes Democrat is because of the mass amount of people that live in Northern Virginia, Richmond, and even in the beach. There's a little bit of conservative twist to maybe Suffolk and Chesapeake, maybe.
Right.
But Virginia Beach still votes kind of Democrat, and Norfolk definitely votes. So what you're really talking about is urban versus rural, and that's really playing out in Virginia. Now, California is different in that you can go from pocket to pocket. But with us, it is, and I've seen the map of those elections recently. The whole damn state of Virginia is red. It's all red. But then there's a blue line along the interstate. Well, and then Hillary wins, and and Biden wins, and Harris wins.
New York is pretty much the same way
along the interstates.
Yeah,
it's probably that's true.
When you have this giant population down in the 5 counties, I was going to say just 5, but probably 7 to 8 counties down in the southeastern part of New York, and then
that's true.
There's nothing between there and Albany, and then you have
you're right.
Small pocket in Syracuse, small pocket in Rochester, and then you have Buffalo. But then there's nothing in between there. It looks like Virginia.
And it's the most beautiful state there is, though.
Yeah,
God, it's central New York and upstate New York is beautiful. It is. Yes. It's the most incredible place. Yeah.
But it's nothing there. And those people pretty much are disenfranchised, kind of like the people in California. They are.
Right.
Outside of the LA area or the San Francisco area, they're pretty much like us.
Right.
It's just that those giant pockets of people have overwhelmed the will of those who don't live there. And hey, It's a democracy. It's a democracy, and that's just the way that it is, So I don't know. Anyway, that's
all right. Well, I think we've solved all the problems, right?
Yes, we have.
And we're going to go ahead and take a break here and go to our next show where we're going to discuss what it is you want to bring up in the next topic. But for those that are listening, that are watching Virginia politics, because I do think Virginia is becoming more and more of a player in national politics, for sure. The fact that the proximity to D.C., the fact that we actually are right on the Potomac River, and had such an important part in the formation of the country, I would think. But another thing you notice is, look at how many of our governors are not born in Virginia. Now, the last 2 have been born in Virginia, but we've had some history that have gone on to national prominence, like U.S. Senate, a couple of guys in the U.S. Senate that have been governors. I mean, if you go back and look, it kind of started, I would say, in the 80s, probably. You started to see people from the outside that went to the right Ivy League universities, politically connected, came to Virginia, won the governorship, and then moved on into higher levels of politics and kind of used Virginia as a conduit. George Allen was included in that. George Allen was a Republican, was not born in Virginia. I can't believe that. I don't think Chuck Robb was born in Virginia. I know Kane wasn't born in Virginia. I know Warner wasn't born in Virginia. So there was a run there, of a lot of people. Now, Douglas Wilder was definitely born in Virginia. He was from Virginia. And Jim Gilmore was from Virginia in the last 2. But there was a run there of kind of people. Well, Bob McDonnell's not from Virginia. He was born in Pennsylvania. So there's been a lot of governors. And you see this political strength coming from a lot of outsiders coming into Virginia. And I'm not doing that. Are you a come here? You don't belong here. But I'm saying Virginia's a place that people want to be, because Richmond's an important city. It's one of the Federal Reserve districts. It's an important city. There's a lot going on in Richmond being the capital. And it's 110 miles from D.C. So when you're along 95 from Richmond to D.C., there's a hell of a lot of political stuff going on along that route. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, I definitely agree. Definitely.
All right, brother. Love you, man. Anything else you want to say in closing?
No, that's all, man. Just people.
Get to the next one.
Virginia is in play again, and this time on the local level, you want to call it that, the state level, not just national. So it's important. Okay,
people, like and subscribe. Leave comments. I won't read the comments. Charles will, maybe, but but tell us where we're wrong. We're certainly right about everything with Virginia. All right. That's been a wrap on this show, and we'll see you.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like the show, subscribe and hit your notification button to get an update when we post another episode. See you soon.